Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where during the previous night both the Russians and the Ukrainians once again attacked each other with a significant number of drones. And this article was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and according to this number, the Russians between the 21st and the 22nd of April of 2026 used 215 drones to attack the territory of Ukraine, and this morning we received lots of videos on this matter. According to information we have these days, the Russians were attacking significantly the settlement of Avdiivka, which is located in the most northern parts of the Chernihiv region. Here we can see the city, we can see barracks that most likely were destroyed as a result of attack. Furthermore, the Russians these days were attacking significantly the settlement of Priluki, and in this video published by local sources we can see the Russian drone that was flying over the settlement and how the Russians attacked the building along this street. So this is the Russian drone, as you can see, flying during the daylights without any resistance from the Ukrainian side. Lots of explosions during the previous nights were recorded on the territory of the city of Sumy. The pro-Russian sources are saying that just between 7 a.m. of the 21st of April and 7 a.m. of the 22nd of April, the Russians attacked the city of Sumy and the Sumy region with at least 6 bombs, with at least 3 Iskander missiles, and probably with 21 drones of Hryshyne types. This is the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources from the city of Sumy, and the sources are saying that the Russians attacked a gas station, which obviously can lead to some problems to the logistics of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. Lots of explosions were recorded in the Kharkiv region. The Russians attacked the settlement of Bogodukhov. Here we have another video published by locals. Powerful explosions and fires in Bogodukhov, Kharkiv region. Ukrainians report Russian strikes. The entire city is shrouded in smoke. So this is the situation in this area, and this is another video from the same city. Some buildings were damaged and destroyed, as you can see, and we see that these days the Russians are attacking mainly the northern parts of Ukraine, the northern regions in Ukraine, and these days, and probably since the beginning of the April of 2026, we haven't received almost anything from the western parts of Ukraine. Just lots of updates from the northern part of Ukraine, from the eastern parts of Ukraine, and that's it. The Ukrainians also attacked Russia. Before moving further, explosions and attacks were recorded on the territory of the city of Odessa. The sources are saying that the previous night's attack was one of the biggest one. The Ukrainians reported that the Russians used at least 20 drones, and the Russians were attacking different regions, different parts of the city of Odessa and the central part of the settlement. And explosions were recorded on the territory of the city of Zaporizhzhia. But as for the city of Zaporizhzhia, we had a report that the Russians used Iskander cruise missile of Iskander type, and there was just one explosion, and the Iskander missile was launched from the northeast and attacked the city of Zaporizhzhia this morning, somewhere around at 9 a.m. or something like this. As of the moment when I started making this video, we haven't received anything on the matter what exactly the Russians attacked this morning. The Ukrainians also attacked the territory of Russia with drones, and the sources reported that the Ukrainians used at least 210 ordinary drones and 4 jet drones. As of the moment when I started making this video, we haven't received anything that can confirm what exactly the Ukrainians were attacking, whether the Ukrainians managed to deal damage or not. The Russians are saying that during the night they destroyed 155 drones of the armed forces of Ukraine. So we can see that the situation continue escalating. We see that neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians are planning to give up. Both are trying to improve their positions before the beginning of final negotiations, but the most important thing that currently nobody knows when the final stage of negotiations is going to take place. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Sumy direction. During the previous night, additional changes on the ground were recorded. The Russians continue offensive operation. The Russians improved their positions between the settlements of Miropolska, Miropolye and Prokhody, and these are the changes on the ground between the dates. As you can see, we have removed the yellow controlled territory and we added additional gray zone, which means that the Russians continue advancing, the Russians continue concentrating of their troops troops along the line of combat contact, preparing themselves before the beginning of main battles for the villages of Veliki Prikol, Petrushevo, and Mala Rybitsa. The Russians are getting closer and closer to these territories. In coming days, we'll receive lots of updates from this area. Furthermore, today the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky, stated that the Russians finished their final regrouping and final preparations before the beginning of another major offensive operation. As of now, we don't know for sure where exactly the Russians are planning to launch their major offensive operation. There are many places where they can do this, but something we will see in coming days. We will understand where the Russians launched it. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions around the settlements of Novodmitrievka and Taraturina. This information was published by neutral mappers and by different pro-Russian sources. According to these updates, the Russians continue offensive operation, trying to outflank the settlement of Novodmitrievka from the north and from the south. In coming days, most likely we will receive changes from this area. Now let's move further. The Kharkiv direction. During the night, we received small updates on the ground. So these are the changes between the previous 48 hours. This is the end of the 20th of April. This is the 21st of April. And this is the beginning of the 22nd of April of 2026. According to different sources, the Russians continue advancing, and the Russians right now are moving towards the settlements of Shevchenka and Granov. So which means that the Russians are planning to continue the creation of a buffer zone along the border with Ukraine, and these two villages are the next target of Russians to the north of the settlement of Kazachia Lopany. The Vovchansk direction. The Russians, after a short day pause, resumed their offensive operation, and during the night we received additional changes on the ground. So according to these changes, the Russians continue offensive operation of the settlement of Pokolyana, and it seems that in coming days the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from the territory of the settlement further in the southern direction. So the village would be taken by Russians most likely in coming days. Furthermore, the Russians concentrated to establish complete control over the settlement of Bachkova and over this big forest which is located right exactly in this area. During the previous day, additional changes on the ground were recorded in this area. Furthermore, the Russians managed to infiltrate this forest, and it seems that the settlement of Bachkova is already encircled by Russians. In coming days, the changes and the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation may confirm Russian control over the territory as well as the group of forces north. And the Russians improve their positions in the northern parts of the settlement of Akhrimovka. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kupiansk direction, where the situation for the armed forces of Ukraine continued deteriorating. During the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, significant changes on the ground were recorded. For example, this is the end of the 21st of April of 2026. If you remember, during the previous days we were talking a lot about the Russian soldiers and positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation recorded in the southwestern and the western parts of the city of Kupiansk, and then we discussed the situation, but we decided to wait for additional updates because it was difficult to understand how exactly we needed to adjust the map. And today several sources reported and colored the western, the central parts of the city of Kupiansk as a gray zone or infiltration area, which means that the Ukrainians are about to lose control over the city of Kupiansk, and the Ukrainians are about to fall back from this area in the southern direction. In coming days, once again, the Russians most likely will announce this third or fourth victory over the city of Kupiansk, and most likely the Russians will try to finish the battle for the city right before the May holidays, which are going to start within the next several weeks. So the situation, it seems that a turning point in the battle for the city of Kupiansk has occurred, and most likely from this very moment the Ukrainians will not be able to return the city back under their control. The same situation is taking place in the area of Kovsharovka and Kupiansk-Kozlovoye Novoosinovo. More and more proofs, more and more updates are telling us that indeed the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish almost complete control over these territories, and that the Ukrainians are retreating from this area, from the eastern bank of the river Voskol towards the western bank of the river. But the most important part and the most difficult situation for the Ukrainians is that just to retreat from the western bank towards from the eastern bank towards the western bank is not the only thing that Ukrainians must think about, because now we see that the Russians are about to establish complete control once again over the northern parts and over the entire city of Kupiansk itself, which means that from these positions, after short regrouping, the Russians will be able to continue offensive operation in the southwestern direction with the purpose to cut the northeastern and the eastern Kharkiv direction into several separate pieces that the Russians would handle with every single piece separately. Now let's talk about the Slaviansk direction, and we have lots of very interesting updates about this area. According to information we have, according to the New York Times, the Ukrainian negotiators proposed renaming the Ukrainian controlled part of the Donetsk region Donnyland to the United States in order to undermine Trump's self-esteem, gain stronger support, and change the United States' demand for the Ukrainian armed forces withdrawal from Donbass. So this is the Donnyland. So this is the territory between the city of Pokrovsk, Dobropolye, Liman, and Slaviansk. This is the Donnyland, according to pro-Ukrainian sources. And now we see that the battle for the Donnyland has begun. The Russians, during the previous 24 hours, improved their position significantly to the east of in the eastern Donnyland direction. According to information we have, the Russians have entered the settlement of Rai-Oleksandrivka, and this information later was confirmed by different military experts. So this is the situation by the end of the 21st of April of 2026 in the eastern Donnyland direction, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 22nd of April of 2026 in the eastern part of the Donnyland direction. We have a video, this one, where we can see how the Ukrainians were attacking Russians through this settlement of Rai-Oleksandrivka, lots of FPV drone attacks, and one of the attacks took place right exactly at this point. So based on this video, we have adjusted the map. We have colored the eastern parts of the city of Rai-Oleksandrivka, and we have colored the eastern parts of the settlement based on the reports that were published by different neutral mappers. Furthermore, we see that the Russians intensified their offensive operations and activities in the western parts of the settlement of Rai-Oleksandrivka. During the day, we received the video of how the Russians were attacking the main stronghold of the armed forces of Ukraine in the western parts of the city, probably preparing this territory before the beginning of a major ground operation from the Russian side. It seems that the eastern flank of the Donnyland direction is about to collapse. Now let's move further and let's talk about the central Donnyland direction. According to information we have, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians improved their positions in the city of Kostiantynivka. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 21st of April of 2026, and this is the end of the beginning of the 22nd of April. The Russians continue offensive operation in the eastern parts of the city of Kostiantynivka in the central Donnyland direction. The Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the southern part of Novodmitrievka. So we see that the Russians continue pressure, and the Russians introducing more and more troops inside of the city of Kostiantynivka, which means that the Russians are also tasked to improve their position significantly before the May holidays. Furthermore, the Russians improve their positions in the southern part of the settlement. In the pockets, we will adjust the map in coming hours. Now let's move further and let's talk about the southwestern Donnyland direction. According to information we have, the Russians improved their positions around the settlement of Hryshyne. Just yesterday, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that the battle for the settlement of Hryshyne ended, and these are the changes on the ground since the 16th of April of 2026. As you can see, the map has been adjusted significantly during this period of time, and we see that the Russians continue advancing. We have more videos confirming Russian control, or at least partial control, over the most northwestern parts of the Hryshyne direction. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions around the Zaporizhzhia mine to the west of the settlement of Rodinska. According to information we have, there are still Ukrainian forces, but most likely, due to this configuration of the front line, the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from the Zaporizhzhia mine towards the settlement of Shevchenko, maybe even already in coming hours. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything special. There are very heavy clashes, both through the western and the eastern Zaporizhzhia directions, but without significant changes on the ground. We have covered most of the updates regarding the situation on the ground, but we have lots of interesting statements that I would like to discuss with you in details. According to information we have, the American diplomats plan to visit Russia to discuss a resolution of the conflict conflict. So it seems that in coming days, Kushner and Witkov will arrive to Moscow with the purpose to discuss with the president of the Russian Federation the details of the ending of the conflict, both on the in the Middle East and on the territory of Ukraine. And according to information we have, the U.S. delegation is not going to travel to Ukraine and to discuss their plans with the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, which is something very interesting. Another important statement: Moldovan authorities, with the European Union support, are attempting to expel a Russian task force from Transnistria, Shoigu stated. What else did the Security Council Secretary say in an interview with Komsomolskaya Pravda? Attempts at a military solution to the Transnistrian issue and the replacement of Russian peacekeepers with Western forces will provoke negative consequences for Moldova. Moscow will, if necessary, use all available means to protect Russian citizens in Transnistria in accordance with the constitution. So this is a very important thing. Another important statement: Russia intends to halt oil exports from Kazakhstan to Germany from May 1st. So this is something like an ultimatum to the German side: either you will accept the Russian oil and you will pay for the Russian oil and you will finance Russia in the conflict with Ukraine, or you will not get anything. So this is the message from the Russian side that was made right exactly at the same time when the Ukrainians stated that the Ukrainians managed to finish and repair the Druzhba oil plant, and that Ukrainians are ready to start receiving oil and to transfer oil further in the direction of the European countries. Another important thing that the Ukrainian authorities are discussing the introduction of a ban on men aged 18 to 22 to traveling abroad, followed by a reduction of the age of mobilization. So according to these messages, we see that the Ukrainians are not going to stop and not going to withdraw their troops from the Donnyland, and they're planning to continue fighting with Russians. This is a very important thing, but from the other side, today is the 22nd of April of 2026, just 2 weeks left before the end of the current martial law and the mobilization period of time, which means that in coming hours, the Ukrainian parliament must adopt the necessary laws to extend both martial law and the mobilization process, but yet nothing of this has happened. We have discussed most of the updates regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's discuss the situation in the Middle East. According to information we have, the negotiation process in Islamabad in Pakistan yesterday failed. The Iranian delegation, the Iranians didn't send their delegation to Pakistan with the purpose to discuss the situation with the United States of America. Iran has formally notified the United States that it will not attend scheduled negotiations in Islamabad. The decision follows a pattern of American bad faith since the ceasefire framework was agreed upon. So which means that the negotiation process didn't start, which means that the ceasefire that was announced by the United States of America expired. But the most important thing that the President of the United States of America extended the ceasefire, and he extended ceasefire upon request of the Pakistan side, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal and Prime Minister of Pakistan, we have been asked to hold our attacks on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. So the clashes and bombardments of Iran didn't start. This is the most important thing. But from the other side, we see that the United States of America is going to continue its epic, not epic fury, but economical fury operation. The Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated that Trump has made clear that the United States Navy will continue the blockade of Iranian ports in a matter of days. Kharkiv Island storage will be full and the fragile Iranian oil wells will be shut in, constraining Iran's maritime trade directly targets the regime's primary refinery lifelines. The We will continue to apply maximum pressure through the economic fury to systematically degrade Tehran's ability to generate, move, and repatriate funds. Any person or vessel facilitating these flows through covered trade and finance risk exposure the U.S. sanctions. So this is a very important situation because the President of the United States of America is saying that Iran loses $500 million every day, and also today he stated that according to his information, according to his insights, the policemen of Iran stop receiving salaries and so on. So now we see that the United States of America are trying to force the population of Iran to strike. They want to see riots, and they want the population of Iran to overthrow the current regime of Iran and the current leadership. So that is why they're going to continue the blockades of the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. But despite the current blockade, we continue receiving updates that at least 26 Iranian shadow fleet vessels bypass U.S. blockade. So as of now, there at least by the morning of the 22nd of April of 2026, there were possibilities for ships to cross and to pass through the bypass the blockade without any consequences. But yesterday a very important situation took place, and this situation took place not even in the Arabian Sea or on the territory of the Gulf of Oman. This situation took place in the Indian Ocean. According to information we have, the sources are saying that the American Marines boarded the sanctioned tanker Tiffany in the Indian Ocean, and this is a part of increased measures against vessels linked to Iran. And the 330-meter tanker was reportedly carrying approximately 2 million barrels of oil loaded on the Iranian island of Kharkiv earlier this month. And this is the route of this vessel Tiffany. As you can see, Tiffany left the Strait of Hormuz, and Tiffany have almost answered the waters of Singapore, of these states of Malaysia and so on. But this vessel, as you can see, was stopped by the U.S. forces. Basically, and later we received the report that this was VLCC Tiffany loaded with oil from Iran headed to China. So basically, that was a Chinese vessel, and this is a major escalation as it was 2 million barrels of crude oil headed to China from Iran, worth over $200 million. And according to information we have, 2 U.S. military ships were recorded, revealed their positions in this operation. We are talking about U.S. Miguel Keith and U.S. John L. Kelly. So these 2 ships of the United States of America were recorded in this area, and they were participating in the operation of taking on the complete control the Chinese vessel that was moving from the Persian Gulf in the direction of China. So now we see that the United States of America controls the Gulf of Oman. In coming days, the George Bush aircraft carrier will arrive in the same area, but this time it seems that this aircraft carrier can control the area around Madagascar without any possibilities for anybody to cross the Mozambique Channel. And now we see that special ships, military ships of ESB class are located in the Indian Ocean, and they are purposed and they are tasked for military operations, for special operations, and they will continue arresting and taking under control vessels that are moving from the area of Iran towards China most of all. And it seems that this is the main thing that the United States of America was trying to get and to create the situation when the Chinese would be forced to redeploy their fleet, let's say from the area of Taiwan, from this part in the direction of Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, with the purpose to secure their tankers. So you see that the United States of America are trying to reduce the pressure around Taiwan by forcing the Chinese military to remove their fleet in the direction of Indian Ocean, just with one purpose: to secure the roads, trading roads for their vessels, for their tankers. Most likely, if this situation happens, of course, this will force the Chinese even to change their plans regarding the future of any Taiwan operation, if they have any plans for this, because a big part of their fleet would be used for this operation to secure their commercial vessels. So maybe this is the situation as of the beginning of the 22nd of April 2026. We know for sure that there is a Chinese destroyer Tangshan and that there is a Chinese frigate Dankin, but the sources are saying that there are also submarines, Chinese submarines in this area. And another important thing that I would like to remind you, that yesterday we had a report that the United States of America stopped a vessel in this area, and the sources are saying that the United States of America stopped a Chinese ship that was probably moving even weapons or arms to Iran. And if you remember, the President of the United States of America stated that the Chinese leader Xi Jinping promised not to do this. So now it's not even the conflict between the United States of America and Iran, and all these signals tell us that currently this is the conflict between the United States of America and China, maybe even on the matter of Taiwan. And that's it for the short video. The military, if it's short, the military summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.